let's talk a little bit about punctuation. Now, there are a lot of punctuation rules, and you got to know them. I'll put it this way. Punctuation is a science, not an art. It's not open to interpretation. I know sometimes we'll be writing for a while and think, oh, I've gone a while without a period or a semicolon or a comma or something. I'm just going to throw one in to break it up. There are rules about when to use particular pieces of punctuation, and that's what we're going to talk about. Here's the good news. Because it's so scientific, mathematical, if you know these rules, you'll get the punctuation questions correct. All right, so we're going to go through all the different types of punctuation that you might see on this test, starting with the easiest one, which is the period. I think we all know what a period does, right? A period ends a sentence and begins a new one. Let's say that I have two sentences that are smushed together. I like pie. It is good. Wow, I'm really making these sentences simple, aren't I? I like pie. It is good. This is caveman speak. I have two full sentences here. I like pie, subject, verb, complete thought. It is good, subject, verb, complete thought. I can separate these two sentences with a period. And of course, I'd have to capitalize the first sentence of the next one. But this is one way to break up two different sentences. So I don't think we need to talk more about the period. We all know what it does. It ends a sentence and begins a new one. Now, the semicolon is something that a lot of people get confused about. They're like, is it a comma? Is it a period? Is it kind of in between? And fun story, in French, I used to teach an SAT class at a French high school. The literal translation of the word semicolon in French is period, comma. It's like a mashup word. But here's the good news. You don't have to worry about semicolons. Now, they will be on the test. That's true. But, and you're hearing it here, I'm telling you this, and you can take it to the bank. For the purpose of the SAT, there is no difference between a period and a semicolon. What do I mean by that? A semicolon has a particular purpose in writing, in language. If I'm writing a story and I want to write two complete sentences that are very closely related to each other, like these two, I like pie, it is good, I could, instead of using a period, use a semicolon. But here's the thing. How do I determine if two sentences are closely related enough to use a semicolon? I can't. And therefore, the test will, I'm saying this firmly, you can write this down, the test will never make you pick between a period and a semicolon. They do the exact same thing. In writing, when you write essays, I'll let your English teacher tell you, when might be better to use a semicolon or when's a period. But on the SAT, you do not have to decide. A period and a semicolon are the same thing. So you can replace one with the other. All right, let's talk about the colon. This is a little different. So a colon, or 2 points in French, that's the word. They're very, very literal in French in describing punctuation. The purpose of a colon is to list or announce something. I'll give you an example of this. Let's say I went to the store and bought 3 items, colon, milk, cheese, and bread, right? That's my story. There's really only one grammatical rule that you need to remember for a colon. And I'm gonna kind of illustrate it right here. The first part, the part to the left of the colon, must be a complete sentence. This is the only rule that you need to remember with colons. The purpose of a colon is to list or announce something, right? I'm gonna say, here's my list of items. But on the left side of the colon, the first part needs to be a complete sentence. I'll just say complete sentence. Complete. The second part can just be a list of items, milk, bread, cheese. That's not a full sentence, but it could also be a full sentence. Like, I went to the store and did something I'd never done before, colon. I jumped in the shopping cart and, rolled myself down the aisle. That's an example of 2 complete sentences. The second part of this can be complete or incomplete, but the first part has to be complete. All right, dashes. Dashes are very, very flexible. They have several different uses. And I'm going to highlight two of them here. The first one is to basically do what the colon does, like announce something. So anywhere you see a colon, you can use a dash. I'm comfortable saying that. You can replace a colon with a dash. The reverse is not true, so I can't replace a dash with a colon. But anywhere I see a colon, I can replace dash. So that's one case where I would use a dash. The other case would be interrupting. So for instance, my brother dash, who is on the soccer team dash, has a game. I'm not writing it all out, but my brother dash, who is on the soccer team dash, has a game. I'm interrupting this sentence with an additional piece of information. That's something that dashes can do. All right, now commas are kind of their own beast. So let's put a little pin in commas right now and take a look at a few examples testing these ones right here. Let's practice our punctuation on a couple of examples. Pause the video and give these questions a shot. New seismic sensing technology holds the promise of warning vulnerable areas about earthquakes up to 30 seconds before they strike. Blank. This might seem like an insignificant amount of time. Such an early warning could save hundreds of lives and billions of dollars of damage. All right. So the word we're looking for is although, right? Although is in all these answer options. What we're really trying to decide about is the punctuation. Let's start with what I think is the easiest one to consider, which is a semicolon. Because what is a semicolon? It's a period, right? I cannot stress this enough. Grammatically, semicolons and periods are identical on this test. You don't have to worry about choosing between them. So let's see if this could work as a period. New seismic sensing technology holds the promise of warning vulnerable areas about earthquakes up to 30 seconds before they strike. Boom. Could that be a full sentence on its own? Absolutely it could. Let's see if the second part could. Although this might seem like an insignificant amount of time, comma, such an early warning could save hundreds of lives and billions of dollars in damage. Well, that too could work as a complete sentence. And I know that you might not like to start sentences with the word although, or maybe some English teacher has told you that stylistically that's not the best. It's allowed. It's legal, right? You can start a sentence with although. So this one works, both the first part and the second part, if we put a semicolon between them, because last time I promise semicolons are equivalent to periods. Now we haven't talked about the rules for commas yet. We're going to get to those in a minute. But these ones don't work either, right? Because, and just to be exact about it, in this case, I'm separating two independent sentences with a comma. I can't do that, right? I can't separate two independent sentences with a comma. And then this one has no separation at all, right? And then again, we'll talk about comma rules a little more in depth. But for now, we can make a very affirmative case for this one and say, this works, semicolon works. All right, let's see the second one. Although he had triumphantly taken command of the Roman state, Caesar's ultimate fate was blank against him by some of his closest friends, including his protege Brutus. All right, so let's consider the answer options that we have here. Let's start with answer option A, colon, a betrayal. What's the rule on colons? We talked about this a minute ago, right? If you want to use a colon, the part to the left of the colon, the first part of the sentence, must be a complete sentence, right? I should say the first part of the sentence that we're considering has to stand on its own. So let's see if it does. Although he had triumphantly taken command of the Roman state, Caesar's ultimate fate was, colon, that's not a complete sentence, right? I can't use a colon unless the first part is a complete sentence on its own. Likewise for answer option C, right? Period, a betrayal. That first part does not stand on its own, so I can't just end the sentence there. And then the same issue with dashes, right? Dashes, as we talked about, can operate in the same way as a colon, right? As a way to announce. And the first part has to be a complete sentence. So the only one I'm left with, the only correct answer that could possibly work here would be no punctuation at all, just to hear it out, right? Although he had triumphantly taken command of the Roman state, Caesar's ultimate fate was a betrayal against him by some of his closest friends. That could end right there, dash, including his protege, Brutus. So the correct answers here are A and B. Let's discuss commas. It is so important that you know the rules around commas, because if you know them, you'll get the questions right, and if you don't, you won't. It's that simple. We can't just throw a comma in. Let's discuss commas. It is so important that you understand the rules around commas. If you know the rules, you'll get the questions right, and if you won't, let's discuss commas. Let's take a look at commas. It is so important that you understand the rules around commas. If you know the comma rules, you'll get the comma questions right, and if you don't, you won't. It's that simple. So there are 3 cases where you can use commas, and only 3. Here they are, know them and learn them. The first case is to separate independent clauses, or remember, complete thoughts or complete sentences. Now, it's not enough to just throw a comma in between 2 complete sentences. Let me show you what I mean here. Let's say that I have 2 sentences smushed together. I like pie. I'm full. Right? I like pie. I am full. Those are 2 complete sentences. I can't just throw a comma in between them, right? I can't just separate 2 independent sentences with just a comma. If I want to separate 2 independent sentences like this, I need to add a fanboys with the comma. What's a fanboys, you ask? Well, a fanboys is an acronym. For, and, nor, but, or, yet, so. Say it again. For, and, nor, but, or, yet, so. So if I want to connect 2 sentences like this, I like pie, I'm full, I need to add a comma with a fanboy. So like, I like pie, but I'm full. Oh, now the sentence makes a lot more sense, right? I'll note, by the way, I could add a period here, right? I like pie, period, I'm full. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but those are 2 complete sentences. Or I should say it doesn't sound very good, but those are 2 complete sentences. I could also add a semicolon because, why? A semicolon is equivalent to a period. Enough of that. All right, so that's the first case where I can use a comma plus a fanboys. The second case is in a list of items. So if you say, I went to the store and I bought, I'm just going to do ... milk, bread, and eggs. Milk, comma, bread, comma, and eggs. That's me separating the items in a list. Now, some of you may say, aha, but what about this comma right here? I've seen it without that. And that's true. That's known as the Oxford comma. And we're getting into the nitty-gritty here. It's a stylistic choice. Some newspapers use the last comma. So they would say milk, comma, bread, comma, and eggs. And some don't. They would just say milk, comma, bread, and eggs. Again, you will not have to choose whether or not to use that comma. So you just need to understand that commas can be used to separate items in a list. You don't have to worry about the Oxford comma, but look it up and read about it if you're more interested. Anyway, the last case, right? The last case where I can use commas is to tag on information to the beginning, middle, or end of a sentence. And I'm going to say tag on non-essential information. And I'll give you 3 examples of this: beginning, middle, and end. What if I said, born in 1800, who's a famous person born in, Abraham Lincoln, I think was born around there. Born in 1800, comma, Abraham Lincoln was the 16th president. The 16th. Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Born in 1800, comma, Abraham Lincoln was the 16th president. So that is a complete sentence, right? Abraham Lincoln was the 16th president is a complete sentence. It could stand on its own. But if I want to add a little more background information about Abraham Lincoln, i.e. that he was born in 1800, I can tack that onto the beginning and separate it with a comma, right? A comma can be used to tag on that information at the beginning. Okay, it could also be used to tag on information in the middle. Abraham Lincoln, we'll keep the Abraham Lincoln theme going here, comma, who was born in 1800, I'll just keep this the same sentence, born in 1800, comma, was the 16th president of the United States. So here, the complete sentence is Abraham Lincoln was the 16th president of the United States. I am interrupting that with a set of commas, right? I'm adding that non-essential information in the middle, and I can do that. Finally, and I'll just use a different example because it's fresh on my head. I could say something like, I ran home, comma, laughing all the way. Laughing all the way. Well, here, that's the complete thought. I ran home is a complete sentence. And I'm tacking on non-essential information to the end. Laughing all the way. I'm just tacking that on with a comma. So the three cases where you can use commas: separating independent clauses, listing items, or tagging on non-essential information. Practice makes perfect. Pause the video, try these questions out, and let's discuss. American blank Mandy Farnsworth has advanced the study of protein structures with her decades of work in the field. Now, I really hope you got rid of C right away. Why? Because remember what a semicolon is. A semicolon is equivalent to a period. We can't say American chemist. Mandy Farnsworth has advanced the study of protein structures, right? That effectively ends the sentence or ends the complete thought. It's not what we're doing here. The other important thing to note is that this is one unit of a person, right? American chemist Mandy Farnsworth, right? So it needs to go together. Now, you may have picked answer options A or B, right? American, comma, chemist Mandy Farnsworth does not work. It doesn't fit one of our three rules, right? Nor does saying American chemist, comma, Mandy Farnsworth has advanced the study of protein structures. That doesn't fit one of our three rules. Now, you might argue, and maybe you're doing this right now, maybe you're yelling at the screen right now, and I'm going to yell right back at you. You might argue, well, isn't that non-essential information? Aren't we tacking on a non-essential piece of information? And I suppose we are. We're describing Mandy as an American chemist. However, again, it's part of the whole title. American chemist Mandy Farnsworth is like one entire thing. You wouldn't say, Senator, comma, Jones. You would say Senator Jones. It's one complete piece. If I wanted to add non-essential information, I would do it like this. I would say, as an American chemist, comma, Mandy Farnsworth has advanced the study of protein structures, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, right? But this does not fit any one of our three rules, and so we have to pick D, which is no comma at all. Okay, very few private retirement companies still offer pension retirement programs, period. Blank, they rely on personal retirement accounts such as 401ks. Now, before we even dive into this, let me just point out this comma is here because we're adding non-essential information at the end, right? They rely on personal retirement accounts. Boom. I could end it there, but I feel like adding a little something else and saying, oh, for example, such as 401ks. So let's look at this blank here. Instead. Well, again, here's the good thing about knowing punctuation. We can get rid of these two right away. We can get rid of the semicolon for the same reason that we did over here. We're not ending the sentence here. We don't say instead. Instead is not a full sentence. And for that same reason, remember the rule that we talked about with the colon. Review the other lesson if you need to. When you use a colon, the part to the left of it has to be a complete thought. Is instead a complete thought? It's not. So we have this decision again to make. Do we add a comma or we don't? In this case, we do. Because I'm adding additional information. I'm saying instead of doing what we did before there, comma, they rely on personal retirement accounts. And then I add something to the end. So this sentence has additional information at the beginning and additional information at the end. It's additional information that I could remove, right, without losing anything. So that's correct. The other thing I'll just add about this, another way to sort of explain it, is it's a transition, right, from the previous sentence. It's a little bit of an artistic flourish. I'm saying, well, I just finished saying that sentence. Now I'm moving into this one. So I'm adding this transition word, but that transition word is not necessary. It's not necessary to understand what the sentence means. So it's non-essential, and I can separate it with incomplete information, or with a comma. A new study suggests that pre-Columbian contact may have occurred between Polynesia and South America, blank. Theory is supported by genetic evidence. Okay, so here it's all commas. We have to decide. Let's start with answer option B. And a good guiding question to always ask yourself is, could this be a complete sentence on its own up to this point? A new study suggests that pre-Columbian contact may have occurred between Polynesia and South America. Boom. Yeah, that could be a full sentence, right? How about this next part? If I just add in this. This theory is supported by genetic evidence. That could also be a full sentence. So I could have these two full sentences next to each other. A new study suggests blah, 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 blah. And then I would say, this theory is supported by genetic evidence. I can't just separate two independent clauses to complete sentences with a comma. Remember, what are the ways that I can separate two independent sentences? I could separate them with a period, with a semicolon, or with a comma plus a fanboys. So if I had another a fanboys added onto that comma, as I do here, not to jump too far ahead, that might fix things, right? And in fact, this does what I need it to do. I'll eliminate these two in just a second, but we'll just answer this question right here. Comma and is effectively the same thing as a period, right? If I say a new study suggests that pre-Columbian contact may have occurred between Polynesia and South America, comma, and this theory is supported by genetic evidence, I am connecting those two sentences together properly. Now, why not this one? Well, for the simple reason, and comma this, right? It doesn't fit one of our three rules. It doesn't separate non-essential information. It doesn't separate two complete sentences, and it's not a list, right? I'm not listing it out. And then same problem here. I'm going on from the previous sentence. And this, comma, theory is supported by genetic evidence, doesn't do one of my three rules. Correct answer here is D.